Well, good morning, everyone. Sunday morning. I hope you are doing good and that everything in your world is going as planned. As you can see, I am solo here for the moment, waiting on Jeff wherever Jeff may be. We'll just move on and, he'll come up with this in time travel. So good morning, everyone. Love Matters, good to see you. Michelle, good to see you. Hello. Experimental Elements, good morning. Jerry, how you doing, buddy? Ava, good to meet. Sarah, how are you? Ellen, good morning. Well, I have notes, so that's always good. And it helps because sometimes these things happen and it's just life. Well, I think I see Mr. Jeff Doherty in the house. So allow me, folks, to go in here and pull him in. And I can actually do more. We can actually hold on one, folks, as we get him pulled in here. Jeff, how are you? Let's see here. Can we hear you now? Jeff, how are you? Are you mute?
I was muted. I don't believe I am anymore.
No, how are you, my friend?
I'm so sorry, Wayne. I was sitting there just having a cup of coffee, waiting for the time to get into the show, and I started reading this, and I lost myself just a little bit. I have no excuse.
Well, sometimes words can carry us away.
I got lost in a book. I do apologize.
That happens.
That's very rude.
Well, that's all right. I was here. We had the party going.
Good.
Yeah, we had.
I hate to show up and ruin the party, but here I am.
No. We had them. I think I had Warrior Princess and a few others walking around getting coffee for everyone.
I see Mark Center Saint. It's nice to know him. And Mark, you'll be proud or interested to know that this book is full of Rosicrucian ideology.
And I bet you it has the 7 principles firmly established within.
It is all over the 7 principles, Wayne. It's all about Hermeticism, and
people need to understand it will change your life. And
why do you think I got caught up in it? It's probably I don't know if I've read as many books as you have, but I've read a lot, and that's one of the most profound books I've ever read.
It's wonderful. It's odd that you mentioned that because I was up to way late reading my book.
Which is basically the same thing, only this looks like the Cliff Notes version of what you're reading.
Yeah, this one gets it's a little different when you read how the dialogue was, the teacher to the student.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the discourse. However, it's odd that you mentioned this. You see, nothing happens by circumstance. It can't. It's just an undefined law.
I agree.
Yeah. And I actually brought this out for it, just in case we brought this up. And
hello to Catherine in Beirut.
Well, hello, Catherine. Welcome. So I came across this one let me just read this to you because you'll appreciate this, Jeff. It says, few seeds come from God, but those that do, they are potent and beautiful and good, virtue, moderation, reverence. Reverence is knowledge of God, and one who has come to know God, filled with all good things, has thoughts that are divine and not like those of the multitude. This is why those who are in knowledge do not please the multitude, nor does the multitude please them. They appear to be mad, and they bring ridicule on themselves. They are hated and scorned, and perhaps they may even be murdered. As I have said, and this is Hermes talking, vice must dwell here below, since this is its native land, the earth in its native land, not the cosmos, as some will blasphemously claim. The God-fearing person, at least, will withstand all this because he is aware of knowledge.
Wow. I just was checking my comments earlier this morning, and somebody very wisely stated, the more I read, the more I think all roads lead to Hermes.
That's how they used to do back in the day.
I think that was Tracy who said that.
That's well said, Tracy. Maybe the day, I don't know if it'll ever get there again, Jeff. I think we're under such a dark spell here in this country. But I almost envy the opportunity, how it must have been back there in the first century and pre-first century, where towns were built with amphitheaters so people could talk philosophy, religion, ideas. Yeah.
And now we have the NFL and the Kardashians.
Oh, how we have advanced.
And we call ourselves advanced.
So what were you getting out of the book? Share with us, my friend.
I'm getting so much out of this book. It's impossible to tell you what I got. In fact, I have a good friend that I made a deal with him. I said, if I send you a book and you promise to read it, I'll read any book that you send me. And this is the book that I sent him. It's just so profound. And the thing I was kind of getting out of it that's hit me the most lately is they discuss meditation. And while they discuss the importance of being able to be in a meditative state, they talk about the potential dangers of meditation as it's practiced in the East and by people that aren't from the East. And it gives you a lot to think about as to, do we want to meditate just for meditation's sake, opening ourselves up to who knows what, or do we want to meditate with a specific purpose towards raising and advancing our consciousness? And that's what's bouncing around in my mind right now.
Excellent point.
What say you, Mr. Steiger?
Well, let me get this.
And I appreciate your red and black theme today.
Hey, listen, I got up and it could have been purple and black, but the purple one didn't come. So it was, red is the color of the day.
Gotcha. Well, you can see I have a little bit of affinity for red and black.
Yeah. All I can say is it's just that way. And so talking specifically as to what you were just mentioning there, it's quite amazing. I wrote this down. Someone wrote me, I gave out Friday the ritual for cleansing for favor. And people, I have given out,
I know something about that, Wayne.
Pardon?
I know something about calling favor.
Yes, you do. And one guy wrote me and he said, Mr. Steiger, when you get to that point where Mr. Steiger is what it is, it's what it is. And I've become my father. But he said, I went out and did a search and he said, you're the only one who's put out a spell that actually helps people. He said, why is it that there is no spell or incantation for favor?
I don't think we don't know about them. And if there are, they are few and far between, but it does work. I can attest to that.
So it's interesting. I wrote before we come on, we hadn't even talked, thoughts that lead to words. Nothing in this plane works without words. And so when you talk about meditation, I agree with that. I think that if you just simply go out there as a neophyte and try to go out and find the serenity and the so-called peace, you're going to be met with a lot of energy. And people don't believe this, Jeff, but there are entities. Hermes teaches that we create our own entities with our thoughts, these
Absolutely.
passions. If the strongest one is sexual addiction, and those entities that are created from the ether that are brought into manifestation by this energy, and particularly with sexual energy, they're not going to leave. It's very difficult to dissolve them back into the ether. So
it really is. And I've tried to talk to people about things that are, created with, sexual connections, and it's just hard. It's such an emotional thing with people. Dr. Fitzpatrick, Allison Ashley Fitzpatrick, PhD, says in the chat room, I think this might be worth talking about. And it looks, and she says, not sure I would use the term spell or incantation.
Well, I mean, let's
But
look
that's
up the
what they are,
definition.
aren't they?
But they are. Yeah, you know,
Far be it for me to disagree with the PhD.
well, all I can do as an observer and an experiencer is that I came out of an indoctrination of a religion that starts with the invocation.
That's
And
right.
that's what it is. That's what it is. It's an invocation. It's not an incantation. It's invocation.
Well, if you look in some of the more formal churches that put out the brochures, of the order of service, many times right at the beginning, it'll be opening invocation.
You have to. You have to invoke the forces. So that's my perception. So it may be that we're talking synonymously, just different flavors of tea. That's all.
Semantics. But I mean,
Yeah.
a spell is a spell. And I think that the negative connotation on the word spell is so pervasive that sometimes when we talk about a good spell, that's hard for people to wrap their obviously advanced minds about.
Yeah, I have a
Dr.
number of.
Patrick says that she prefers invocation. I kind of like spell. I just like it to just what it is, what it is.
Well, what I actually do is it's invocating the forces. And I had this conversation yesterday afternoon. Is that what is God perceived of? Well, if God could be perceived and defined potentially as one word, I contend that the minute you define God, it's no longer God. But if we could define God as a force, I think everyone would agree with that.
I was watching one of Derek's shows the other day, and somebody was taking Naughty Beaver to task for saying that Yahweh is the true God, and of course I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that, but
And
hey,
I don't mean to agree or disagree. I don't find alignment with that. But Derek made a good point that if you can name the God, then it's not really the God, because the Almighty, the illimitable one, the inexpressible one, the ineffable one, can't be named and can't be contained within the confines of a name. So if you can name him, if you can name her, they're not the almighty and ineffable God. They're just not, or goddess.
no, they're at this level here. And let me share something with you. I was up at about 4:30 this morning and just immersing myself in the elements. I'm beginning to, I don't know, maybe it's a step, whatever you want to call it, but I'm more conscious now of this body, that it's made out of the matter and the material, that I'm immersed in the four elements. And this came out of me, and it was weird, Jeff. I said, what an experience time is. And I said, inside, I'm glad I experienced this. I'm ready to see what else is beyond that.
Wayne, may I suggest, as his book suggests, that what you're doing is you're seeing the manifestations of the practice of taking control of your body. The vast majority of people in this world are controlled by their body. Their body drives them, the body's desires, the body's wants, the body's needs. You discussed sexual addiction just a moment ago, where most people are driven by the body, the body, the body, the body, the body. But when we get to the place of true consciousness, it's our spirit, our consciousness that drives the body. And the body can say, I'm hungry, but the conscious person can say, okay, great, but I'm fasting today. And when the I becomes your consciousness instead of your meat suit, that's when you're making some progress.
Yes, sir. And in fact, in this invocation for favor, and it's an invocation of favor from the elements. We never stop and think about it. They're a force. Now, whether you want to identify them with a personality or not, that's not the point. And it's when we begin to understand that, I don't know how to express this. It's very interesting. I'll just leave it at that. But there is in fact, cleansing that a person has to do before they can step in to begin to actually, what I call, commune with these forces.
Absolutely, because there's so much. Yeah, I think the force is demanded, and our ability to align with them demands it. And I mean, if
And
we
by the way, the fasting, it's recommended you either do a 12 or 24-hour fast before you do the invocation.
Right. Makes perfect sense.
Yep.
If we believe that the earth is Gaia, that the earth is a divine being, then of course the four elements would be likewise divine.
How could they not be?
Right.
And the one thing I did learn as well, and it's part of this invocation, you also invocate what is above and what is below.
And it's so funny. I was just thinking, and Indie Girl 42 says, I'm addicted to these guys. Is that okay? But
Well,
Toth, I did tablet 13 last night.
yeah, I saw that. I didn't have a chance to watch it, but
Toth suggests that we, and I'm going to work up to this. I don't know if I can start here. For an hour each day, you lie with your head pointed towards the north and concentrate on centering your consciousness from your chest up. And then you lie for an hour with your head towards the south and start and focus on concentrating your consciousness from the chest down. And to the spiritual people, it's obvious what he's trying to do. He's trying to get as above, so below. He's trying to center your consciousness within your heart. And that, I think, is true meditation, Wayne.
I'd agree. In Franz Barden's book, The Initiation into Hermetics,
Jenny Moonstone claims that is the best Hermetic text.
all I can say, it's a sacred scripture as the Hermeticum. It's powerful. I'm leading my audience through it very gingerly, but step by step. And the point about meditation is, Franz says, don't even do it if you cannot begin to understand what the technique is actually designed for.
Right. That's so true. And there's so many people out there, you know, and it's good, you know, to be interested in meditating and to be interested in a spiritual discipline. But boy, you got to know what you're doing, and you want to be careful. You don't want to just run pell-mell. It's not like you're going to the gym where you're going to pull a muscle. You might pull something a little harder to repair.
Well, I think that I think concerning for me, and you've brought this out many times, is the hitchhikers you pick up.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a reason why the invocation is done in the nude, is that people don't realize this stuff is matter. It's the same thing spirits are made of. And the best thing I could say, you go into a barbecue place that's doing smoke pick barbecue.
Oh, man, you're making me hungry, Wayne.
And I can tell you what, you'll get a big slab of that brisket and you come back out, and your coworkers, who's ever around you, is going to know where you ate.
Absolutely.
And
it's
the
like
same
going
thing.
into a bar and you come home and smell like a Marlboro.
Yeah. I tell people, you get into arguments, and here's something people don't realize, Jeff. We've got to get people to understand something. People will talk negative to themselves. And the more negativity, and a lot of people don't even hear it anymore, it saturates every fiber of your being.
Wayne, this is so amazing. When I got carried away and got caught up, one of the last things I underlined was, and people make fun of me all the time that I'm the optimist, I'm the wild-eyed optimist, all, rainbows and sunshine and everything's, I take some grief for that, and I accept it, and I wear that as a badge
joyfully.
Joyfully, absolutely. This is I hope I can read this without my glasses. Isn't that terrible?
No.
One of the most important factors for perfect health is the careful avoidance of negative emotions such as depression, melancholy, and sadness, as these provoke a loss of vital energy. The mind must be taught to think for itself about pleasant things, eradicating all that is evil, useless, and a waste of time. If you want to be spiritual, let me see you do that.
Bravo.
Oh, but we can't do that. Yes, you can.
You see, I think that's the judgment. I was reading, I was looking for something in Ephesians that, and I actually was in Hebrews, where it says that everything that was made by him, through him, and for him. Speaking of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And
sounds like John 1:1, Wayne.
It may be. I think no, actually, one Paul. I believe it was. In fact, I found it. It was. I think it was in Hebrews 4. But in any case, it goes to what Hermes says on the first principle. You cannot have someone who says that I am the creator of the all, the all, who doesn't create evil.
Mm.
And by that statement, it says that Jesus Christ created evil.
Wayne, do you even have to create evil, or you just create and sit back and wait? Because sooner or later, some portion of it's going to become evil.
Well, I've been thinking on this in my walks, and you can probably help me on this, Jeff. Wherever I walk on this earth has been saturated with the blood of billions of souls. How can the earth be pure when it is saturated with such evil?
Let me ask you a question that just popped in my mind, Wayne. It seems to me that there is a concerted, organized effort to keep us off the earth. Always wear your shoes that are made of plastics that cut us off from the earth. Don't walk on the grass. I mean, even in Fort Lauderdale, in Pompano Beach, they've got a walkway almost all the way down to the water on the beach, just to keep you off the sand. Are they trying to keep us off of the earth because the blood of our brothers and sisters that have died will call out to us
Ooh,
to want us to rise up and throw off this yoke of bondage?
thank you. Thank you. Part of the blessing for asking for favor is to be asking and invoking the favor of your ancestors. And in Western culture, we don't think of our ancestors. We don't think about grandpa, great grandpa, great 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 grandpa.
What if you're Irish, Wayne, and most of your ancestors were drunk all the time? Can they still help?
Well, hey, listen, they were communing with the spirits.
Of course, that's just a little self-deprecating.
But that's all I got to say. The Druids knew what the hell they were doing.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, so said the Apostle Paul. So
I wonder if he was Irish.
I don't know. He spent a lot of time up there, but it gets back to this point. Earth. We call it Gaia. We call it a living force. It is.
Absolutely.
It contains all these forces and the dynamics of them. We live in the immersion of it. I think my spirit, and I'm just speaking for myself on this, my spirit man, my spirit person, my spirit entity is becoming so much more aware of things. And I'm stepping, I'll just be honest with you. I find at times I'm stepping outside, inside, almost sometimes seamlessly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt that you get to that place where you begin to do that, and and you've already probably done this. We actually find ourselves slipping, I think, between dimensions.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just watching, what was I watching last night? The Man in the High Castle. And I was watching, I know it's silly, but I was watching an episode of Supernatural, and I'm telling you, Wayne, there's people in Hollywood that know what's going on, and they are dropping things into these productions. And yeah, they're talking about moving between dimensions and stepping in and out. It's there's a lot going on. And just something I wanted to bring up, circling back a little bit, Paul and the Irish and all that. Paul wrote in the book of Galatians, talking about, oh, you foolish Galatians, you're going back to days and weeks and months and years. And that's sold to us as the Galatians going back into Judaism, and Judaism's bad, and don't go back into Judaism, stay in the spirit. But the only problem with that is he's talking to the Galatians, and the Galatians were never Jews. The Galatians were Celts. So what they were doing was going back to the days and seasons and months of their gods. They were leaving Paul's God. So this whole thing has been sold to us as Judaism, when it had nothing to do with Judaism. It was people going back to the Elohim or going back to their ancestral gods, trying to, again, tell us that we don't want to go back to our God, stay with Paul's God, and they just completely blatantly lie. You can't, how do you fall back into
You're going to get
never a
in
part of?
trouble. You ain't supposed to be talking the truth. This is Sunday morning. You got more people, and there's a great person who taught that pointed out the word, the pulpit. It's pulling you into the pit. You know?
Oh, it is.
And that what you just described. I mean, that was the thing. In fact, it's odd that you be saying that, because I don't read the Bible. I mean, I got it memorized, but I was looking for a particular passage and I was reading Ephesians. And Paul said the most interesting thing I had never seen before. I might need to reread it because I have a totally different set of eyes.
You can see the encryption going on. You can see the lies and the truths being weaved in, the lies being weaved into truth, the truth being weaved into lies. It's amazing once you look at it as an encrypted book.
And he said, my gospel, of which I've been made a minister. And I went, whoop, wait a minute, let's back up these horses. And I'm looking at, and I'm saying, well, that son of a bitch just said it right there. It was his gospel.
Well, he has to tell us the truth, Wayne, so he's not guilty of our blood, so to speak, on his hands. So he tells people, this is my gospel. That's their gospel. This is my gospel. I was made a minister of this gospel on that road from Damascus to Antioch. So this is not the gospel that those 13 guys had and Mary Magdalene. This is my gospel. And if you want to believe that gospel, you're totally within your divinity, sovereignty, and freedom to believe it. But you need to know it ain't the gospel that the guy that you think you're thinking that you're believing brought. It's another dude's gospel.
And isn't it odd that when you really begin to examine this, how this is now, I'm convinced that Saul, whatever his name may have been, I'm convinced he was a sorcerer.
Yeah, I never thought. I think he was either had a walk-in or he gave himself fully over to possession of an entity on the road to Damascus. I don't know. A sorcerer may well have been as well.
Well, when you read that part in Ephesians, and then now go back to Galatians as well, he talks about being free in Christ, but then he follows it up with women, submit to your husbands, and gets back into this submission doctrine. That how can that be free? I mean, you're speaking two different, I wouldn't say truths, but I believe what the Hermetic teaching says. Does it really matter? If a person is thinking of God, of the all, then let's just be glad that they're thinking of that. And
interesting. Is Paul still alive today? Somebody asked, who's Paul now?
It's odd that you said that, because, see, I think Christ may have been Melchizedek.
Really?
If you read about Melchizedek, he had no beginning, he had no end.
Right.
He was the high priest of whoever.
Abraham's high priest.
Yes. And again, he had no beginning and no end. And when I go to the book of Hebrews, particularly Hebrews 6, and Hebrews 4, when you really get into the dissertation of Abraham and who Melchizedek was, and again, the writer says Melchizedek is that man of mystery. You're reading, so
I think I did a video about Christ being Melchizedek. I'm trying to look on here and see if I did.
Well, it would just seem to be, and then the question then becomes, was Melchizedek Thoth?
Wow.
Was Melchizedek, in fact, Hermes?
Wow. Yeah, interesting stuff.
So let me go one step further. What did Abraham approach Melchizedek for? Favor.
He did indeed.
Yes, he did indeed, folks.
How do you spell Melchizedek?
I think it's now you're gonna ask. I think it's Melick, and
yeah, it's hard. Let's put it that way. It's hard. Interesting. Wow, what an interesting discussion.
So, I mean, if you just step it back, you see, I think that we've missed something. On my board over here, I'm wiping off because I'm getting answers. But the question I'm asking myself is, why has not man advanced in his mental abilities? And if we look, there we go. Melchizedek.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
did do a video called Melchizedek, Mystery of Iniquity, question mark.
Well,
So we're both
it's
on the, I think we're both on the same page, maybe.
yep. So it's just something to think about. I mean, Melchizedek would have had to have been associated in some form at that time frame with the Anunnaki or with the Elohim,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
Abraham would have been more associated in knowing of Enki or Enyel or, whoever. But the point is, again, Abraham went to invoke favor, and favor was given him, granted him. I like how it says that Abraham died well satisfied.
Yeah, that's a whole that's just a whole mystery to me, that whole Abraham thing.
Yeah, it
Very
is. I don't know. I don't know who this God is. That.
Well, I know who he ain't, Wayne. He ain't the God of love and the good God of the Bible. I know he ain't the real God. That I'm convinced of. Who he is, not so sure.
Well, and that's the mystery man. And who knows? Maybe this mystery man is what John the Gnostic was writing about.
And Sterling over in Osaka makes a good point. The reason Abraham got favors because he paid for it. He paid 1/10 of all his spoils.
There you go.
So is that real favor if you got to pay for it? I don't think so.
I like the little joke I used to tell people about why I never wanted to buy into the Abrahamic covenant. And I used to have people go, what, that, why? I said, all right, I'm going to take you back. And this is Abraham's male servants. Abraham comes down,
right.
And here's Jacob. Jacob is white as a ghost, right? I mean, Isaac. And Abraham says to the chief slave, says, call in all the other male servants. And
fixing to get uncomfortable, ladies and gentlemen.
And Abraham says, I've met this God. I've been granted riches. All this land you see is mine, and you're going to be part of this. There's one condition.
Just one little detail.
Just one little condition. And after he explains to him that they have
some littler than others, but little.
And the chief of the stewards says, like hell. And there's where the term hell comes into play.
So we're talking about circumcision, of course, right?
We of course, yes. I'm just trying to be polite and more sophisticated about it.
I've heard that everything's bigger in Texas, but apparently sometimes things are bigger in Montana too, Wayne. I'm just saying.
I don't know. I often found it odd that in Exodus 10, that the thing that Sapphira had to do to appease Yahweh was to do the same thing to Moses.
Oh yeah, and through his foreskin.
Yeah, threw the foreskin out when it was consumed as a sweet essence. I'm going,
Wayne, what is that other than human sacrifice and cannibalism? How does this stuff just go past people's eyes without them picking up on it? Because we're under a spell.
We are under a spell. It's a God spell. I did a whole video on it, documented it word for word, folks. It's a God spell. And you just pointed it out. It likes the smell of human flesh.
Wayne, I used to have a saying, I'm under the spout where the glory comes out. I'm off by one letter there. If I take the L out of glory, we're under the spout where the gory comes out.
Ooh, I like that. Which brings us next point. Words. Words are really important. These gods, this God understands that in this plane and dimension that we live in, words carry energy, And that's what I contend when we started this earlier, was that people constantly cast spells over themselves. They cast spells of lack. They cast spells of deprivation. They talk to themselves that they're not worthy of love. Everything they do turns to whatever you want to use the particular adjective for that or verb, and they walk around. They will say things about their offspring. They'll say things about their ancestors, and they do this sometimes in such a jovial manner. Well, I was just kidding. No, you spoke it. It's carrying. And I'll just use this. I use the book of Isaiah because I think Isaiah, when he wrote this, he said, every word I speak will return back to me, that which I spoke it for.
And there's another place where it says that my word will not return unto me void.
Thank you.
It
Yes.
comes back with stuff. So that's why it's so important. And like, you think about in relationships, oh, it was just an argument and I was just mad. I was just saying this and just saying that. You can't unring that bell. And
No.
once you've said something, you've put into place a programming, you put into place a reality, you put into place a timeline. And many times if you keep saying the same things, you're actually creating thought form tulpes.
Oh,
and that's what you're dealing with. Why do I feel so bad? Why do I feel so tired? Why do I feel so exhausted? Why do I feel so this, so that? Well, maybe it's because you're hip deep in thought forms that you've created with your big fat mouth.
well, and you just said it. When a person says, I am feeling down, let's dissect this. You just use the all-inclusive triad, the Trinity. You said, I am.
Yep.
So you've already established what you are going to be: tired.
Ooh, Robbie K555. He puts WORDS/SWORD.
Well said, Robbie. Well said.
Our word is a sword.
I knew this incantation back in '84 when I was taught it, but in Habakkuk 2:11, I believe, it's 2:24. Maybe 2:3-4. It says, "Write the vision down.
Yep.
Though it tarry, it shall come to pass."
That's nothing but magic right there, Wayne.
That's all it is, isn't it?
Yep. Write the
So,
vision down. And if you really want to make it powerful, turn it into a sigil and write it down.
so Jeff, I've known how people can find prosperity. Now, I come up out of magicians, and that's what they are. These people who found out how these invocations work, these spells.
Ooh,
And
Caroline, words form worlds.
they do.
Even this world. And God said, and God said, and God said.
I mean, I can show you, I know 27 people today, right now. Most are billionaires. All of them are millionaires that used this same spells and incantations, Jeff.
The Habakkuk one?
Mm-hmm. And they have made it's and what people, it's almost like you have to reprogram because they so self-talk. That's the problem with most people, is that, and you were right, if they would invest in duct tape and just simply put it over their mouth, they would be solve 90% of their problems right there.
Well, I have a friend who's not a billionaire yet, but he's on his way. I'm going to ask him if he's done that in his past. And I'll bet the answer is yes, all the time.
Yeah. I can just tell you this. I'll be sharing, because she's given me permission on this. She has done one of the best written declarations for prosperity. And if people only understood, if they had prosperity in their life, you have health, you have your needs met, and you don't need to be rich to have your needs met.
You don't.
You don't. And the thing is that you do the job of beginning to transfer a person's inner image. And sometimes that deconstruction can be, well, a laborious one.
You have to deconstruct yours. You've got to take control of your body. And the only way to do that is to take control of your mind.
Yeah. And
And
that is the difficulty.
that's hard because people are just, number one, they're lazy. And number two, they don't get it. What do you mean take every thought captive? That's impossible. And there you go. There again, you keep saying it's impossible. Guess what? It is impossible for you. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah. Well, I read, what was it? The monk in the 16th century, there was a book. You may remember the book, that he had gotten to the point where he was able to focus in on one thing and one thing only, and would actually defy the laws of gravity. He would blend into the elements where he could literally walk on air.
Wow.
And I believe that that is possible.
I do too. I knew a person back in Orlando. In fact, it's funny. Anyway, it's not worth going into.
Well, it brought joy to you.
Back in Orlando that thought that they were going to, at some point, need to be able to fly to do an active service in some situation. And I told her, that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yeah. So the masters, and I do believe that they're here. I've actually had one reach out to me. We know that the military, the CIA, has looked at remote viewing.
Yeah.
We know the techniques that I believe that they probably have already perfected. Hermes writes that there are those who can achieve that point of awareness where they have been witnessed to have been in a place 300 miles away, teaching and actually working while they were still in their hometown.
Well, that's no big deal. Hillary Clinton did that during the last campaign all the time.
Yeah, that woman knows some magic too.
Of course, it was body doubles, but that's interesting. Hillary might be able to do it. And do you know, Wayne, I'd never heard this before, but some people, and I didn't know there's books about this. There's this whole kind of a subculture about this, that when Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard opened the portal out there in Southern California in 46, 47, whenever Hillary was born, some people believe that the entity that blew through that portal was Hillary.
It may have been. I'm glad you brought this up. So what did Ron Hubbard discover? What was it and he did discover something, folks. Were you ever a part of the EST movement in the 80s?
I never was a part of the Earhart seminars training, the EST. No, I was a little too young for that, Wayne. That was a little before my time. That's where they used to like yell at chairs and stuff like that.
Oh man, I'll tell you. And all I got to say is that when I get on,
says Hillary manifested in 46 when the portal opened, and many people believe that was a portal opened by Parsons and Hubbard.
Yeah. Yep. And I believe it as well.
Do you really?
Yes, sir. I do.
That sounds absolutely crazy to me, but when I heard it, I'm like, ooh.
When you read this book, so Hermes,
how is she defeated, Wayne, if she's this powerful entity.
I'll tell you.
How has she been defeated constantly?
Because are you ready? Fired! No, I'm going to tell you, folks, if you go back to the 2016 Democratic Convention, in her speech that she gave the afternoon before the acceptance speech, she made the most critical violation of her life. And she knew this. She cursed the frog.
Yeah.
Now, people don't believe it. I don't care. But those of us who know, when she cursed the frog publicly, nothing since then has ever worked for her or anything that's been attached to her. And that includes the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm. How did she mess up the first time and get beat by Obama?
I don't think she did.
You think she ceded it to him?
Oh, the 2008 event in Denver was it was a coronation.
Yeah.
It wasn't a nomination, it was a coronation.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. So of course, since we're here, um, we had the new Supreme Court justice. We had the lowest unemployment numbers in 60 years. Seems like the Trump train is gaining some steam, Wayne.
All I got to say, don't curse the frog.
And it's funny that Trump has become identified with that frog.
Yes, with Pepe.
His son intentionally identified him with that frog.
Trump Jr. knows.
Yeah.
I
So
can't.
is Trump? I mean, it's Trump is kind of a riddle wrapped up in a
An
conundrum,
enigma?
surrounded by an enigma. I think, having looked in his eyes and shaken his hand, it seems like there's a good man there, but boy, how do you get to where he is? He's the smartest guy in the world, and he's either using his powers for good or for evil or for both, and we just don't know.
Well, again, it's just a matter of degree between good and
Yeah,
evil.
what is good or evil?
Yeah, how far you want to
They don't
move
really exist.
the meter. Um, Something is up. I want to do my Thursday show, and we don't lose power here. Lost power.
Mm.
And the show was going to get into detail because I can't talk about it on YouTube for fear of censorship.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tricky Vicky. It was only the lowest unemployment in 49 years. What did I say? 50? No need to exaggerate. Some people just want to hate. It's only been 49 years. It's the best unemployment. I'm so sorry to upset your liberal world this morning, but it's still good. 49 years, 50 years. Hey,
They
I'll
say
take it.
that's the spell that has been cast. Is this, and it is. My question is who is the master magician here?
Yeah.
I want to know. What we saw the last 10 days, what put this country through, that was not what people thought that was. That was a spell that you were being drawn into. If you watch the hands of some of these particular people that were speaking, they are speaking in a language that you are not aware of. And you may not even be conscious of it, but it is true.
And what was the spell, Wayne?
This is a dark, dark spell on this country. People are under it, and what it does, once you succumb to it, you no longer have the ability for balance within. You lose your equilibrium. You become so polarized. And that's what the principles warned against. When a person becomes polarized, you're on the road to self-destruction.
And I was just reading again this morning. The only place of growth, I read this both in Toth and in this book, is balance. It's got to be
Got to
balanced.
be balanced.
You can't create positivity. You can't grow from anywhere other than balance. And somebody just said, I think it was Mark Center Saint said, the master magician is ... look in the mirror. And that's true.
There is something, though, there's a greater, there are levels that people don't understand that you can achieve.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm at a certain
Very,
level.
very few initiates.
Yes, there are very few true initiates.
Yeah.
But if you dedicate yourself to it, there is. And this, what I'm trying to express to people is that, folks, there are life forms, there are entities we can't see, but they feed off of you. And once you come under this spell of where you're polarized now, where it doesn't matter what truth is, you become so polarized in your views that it's like adding a drop of red dye to a glass of water. It permeates everything, and then it begins to affect things in your life, and eventually it's going to affect everything in your body.
Let me ask you a crazy question, Wayne. This just came to my mind. You know, Trump, President Trump has gone out of his way to even come against the NFL with the whole kneeling thing. And I mean, coming against the NFL, that's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Coming against the NFL really doesn't seem like that smart. But what if and again, I'm probably putting too much credit to President Trump, but what if he came against the NFL just to try to break up that spell that is the NFL and get a few people pulled out of that mind control element and maybe get them to not be so enslaved and captured by it every Sunday? Was he trying to wake people up just a little bit by throwing a monkey wrench into the well-oiled machinery that is the NFL? Is he
Well,
that
you
deep?
have to admit that these rallies that he holds, I mean, what was the one in Branson, Missouri? At the Branson or Springfield, the line was 2 miles long.
And every time he says something about every football player that kneels should be fired, and the place goes nuts. So say what you want about him, he is not a dummy. He knows how to identify swing issues and sell the hell out of them.
So my contention, and I did a video on this, that on November 9th, 2016, we shifted. Our whole reality on this temporal plane shifted. And I've told the story. I've had people write me that says that they know that it shifted, that one woman was a Democrat. She says, I know I don't belong here. And she was going so far to say that her husband was not her real husband.
Yeah.
And so what if we did shift? Here's the thing that I'm just observing. It seems like every time, no matter how nefarious or as deep as these attacks go, the opposite happens.
Yeah.
And I'm going, what's going on here? I've heard of secret societies, new ones being born in the DC area, particularly in, what is it, St. George Parish County, which is the one, folks, come help me. It's right down there on the Beltway.
I'm not an
Anyway,
expert on that, on there.
yeah. Prince George
Caroline
County, I
says
think.
that she thinks timelines are now collapsing into the singularity.
Caroline, you may be right. Something is going on.
By that, Wayne.
Well, if you follow the principles of matter, atoms, electrons, the eventuality. Go ahead. You think you saw something?
I just had a thought come to me. Keep going.
So the eventuality of even on electron level is that it collapses back into where it came from.
Yeah, she says the false and negative timelines are being dissolved. And I had a friend, and I still, to this day, I'm not sure if he was an astral guy or a real guy, because I never met him personally, but talked to him a lot of times. And he told me back at that time, this was probably 3-4 years ago, that the astral was collapsing and that the etheric and our dimensions were coming closer. So
I just got hit with a word. It's the firmament.
Yeah, the compression of the
firmament.
astral or the firmament.
Whoa, because now this is so freaking weird.
Compresses the false timelines down into a true. So we can see a lot. We should see a lot of people saying, "Whoa, where am I?" There should be a lot of boy, this is interesting stuff. Our timeline's collapsing, and what's the results going to be?
Well, I'm going to give you the science part of this.
About that, Wayne, with somebody.
Well, Ben Davidson over at Suspicious Observers just posted a video. It's an hour long, but what you're going to see is that we know science-wise, our heliosphere in the Earth is collapsing, folks. It's compressing down to the planet. It's going to affect us more and more. Holy crap, I'm seeing this. So time is nothing but an element of which is part of this spatial dimension. If you have any other element collapsing within itself, it would stand to reason that time would also be affected.
And timelines.
And timelines.
That is
very interesting. Very, very interesting.
So it is all collapsing down.
Well,
it's all consolidating.
You know,
it's all condensing.
Dolph said this in the Liberal Talents, that what is, what shall be, shall yet once again. I've often questioned where we are in the pendulum. I don't think we know. I was walking this morning and I said, isn't it still odd? Our species don't know where we come from. Now, you would think that a species that was sentient and intelligent would have the common sense to say, hey, this is where we came from, but no, We're left to speculate.
Wayne, can we stop the pendulum from swinging and stop it in the middle?
If you look at the law of cause and effects, the sixth principle, it is possible. Yes.
Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah. And if you take the fourth law, the law of polarity, that says as well. But what changes the polarity is the thought.
It does.
It's the thought. And as you and I were talking earlier,
somebody says, could Trump be the P.T. Barnum of politics? Could he? Dude, look at him. Of course
I think he is.
Hurry, step right up.
I mean, and listen, let me just say something about my problem with the current power balance where it is. Folks, this Congress is spending money like there is no tomorrow.
Maybe there's
not.
It
doesn't matter whether you're a jackass or an elephant. They're spending it, folks. And I'm just going to tell you, Jeff, I got real deep concerns because you know what? I can't find where they're spending it.
You know what? You're the second person within 12 hours that has told me there's some really bad economic stuff coming. And I'm not a doomer and gloomer. I'm Mr. Optimistic, but I mean, you're the second person that said, get ready. Some economic upheaval has to come.
Listen, from a former CEO, I know what gap is. And if you don't know what gap is in a CEO, then you're in deep, deep doo-doo. But the point is, well, gap stands for General Accepted Accounting Practices.
Oh, okay.
And it's what you have to do in an audit. If you're audited by an accounting firm or even the IRS, you have to comply to gap rules. And folks, the balance sheet isn't making sense. I mean, and
they're gonna have to blow up another government office like they did in the Pentagon.
They're going to have to do something. Something is going
up. As Ricky Ricardo never said to Lucy, you got some splaining to do.
You know, I've got the Lucy show that I've got wrapped up. I haven't taken it out of the cellophane, and I'm thinking now, all right, which copy did I buy? Because I know what Lucy said. You know,
you're saying the money, there's really no place to be spending all this money, huh?
I can't find it. No one else can either. Where we're looking at it, and I don't know where it's going.
Wow.
It's not going into infrastructures. And
have you looked at the bond market?
Well, the bond market says something bad's coming. Listen, when the Fed chairman said on Thursday at their quarterly meeting, and this was the direct quote, this economy is too good to be true. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a guy that's part of the cabal. I mean, he's part of the, the whole banking structure, and they're giving out signals. And I'm going, why? So anyway.
Wow.
Something to think about.
That's why the bond market is what to follow for economic collapse domino. Do you agree with that?
Many times. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. What we're looking at now in the hedge funds that are coming in, and you got to look at what they're doing on the auctions of the T-bills. And that tells you everything. And listen, we got other bigger people now in the swimming pool. And
all I can say is, and I'm not an expert on finance, I'm not an expert on the bonds and the market and all that stuff, but I do know that Donald Trump is known as the king of debt. And the biggest issue with us right now is this debt. And I don't know if this is a prophecy or not, but everybody says it can't be done. It's impossible. You can't. What if the king of debt, now sitting in the White House, figures out some way to leverage the debt of this country like he's leveraged debt throughout his career that's made him incredibly wealthy, and not just on paper, he's wealthy in assets, ladies and gentlemen. What if he can pull the same spell for the country that he's pulled for himself personally? And I know you say it can't happen, but I'm just saying he's the king of debt. He's in the White House. Debt's our biggest problem. I don't know.
I had a night vision in 1984. Wow, you're making me think on something. I don't know if I want to say this, but I'm going to put it out there. In 1984, I had a vision where an angel, That's what I interpret it as. Took me, and I was on a tarmac. And it looked to me be like a military bus, had huge hangars. And on the podium, there were three representatives of three armies. They were white, black, and red. And as I was watching this, there was a carpet that was rolled out in the middle. And now, folks, this is God's truth. And I'm talking God as the all. That's what my version of God is. It was a blonde-headed figure came up, and here was the point. This individual had the solution for the world. And my guide told me that this person would know the solution for a four-letter word.
Ooh, like DEBT.
That's exactly the four-letter word. And those were the three armies that had gathered to begin to lift him up. Now, if I were a Christian today, I would be going in a completely different direction. But what if Trump could be potentially perceived to be the Antichrist because he is the antithesis of the system that's in power today?
And Wayne, what if, and you got to remember, and this is craziness, I know, but you got to remember these people, they don't play, you know, the old adage, they don't play checkers, they play chess. It's a long game. It's a long play. This whole thing with the Jesuits starting back in the 16th century about this future Antichrist, it's the Antichrist, it's the Antichrist, it's the Antichrist. What if they knew that Trump was going to be able to come at this time, and they didn't know if it was Trump, but what if they knew that somebody was going to come at a certain time and be able to turn everything around, and they've created this whole mythos of an Antichrist so that the people that should be fighting for him would be fighting against him?
I mean, maybe we got it all wrong. We were viewing an Antichrist in the antithesis of a religion, but we misinterpreted the religion.
He's the antithesis of the whole system.
Exactly.
He's anti what they call Christ. He's anti the system. He really does want to drain the swamp. And isn't it funny that a frog would want to drain a swamp, Wayne?
Now we're getting into some really heavy stuff.
Usually come out of.
They come out of the swamp.
They come out of swamps.
I mean, we're living in some.
See, here's the thing, like Michelle's like, no, he's going to try to make people think he's the Christ, or there's this whole cabal that's trying to make you think he's the Antichrist because he's the answer.
Well, and I go back to Time magazine, you know, on their cover edition after the inauguration of Barack Obama. He was the new Messiah. That's what it said. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting this timeline as isn't it odd? We got sucker punched. We thought this one guy was going to be the Messiah. Now comes the antithesis of that. I don't know.
Let's go down the rabbit hole a bit further. The system picked Barack Obama, coronated Barack Obama, gave Barack Obama everything they could possibly give Barack Obama, all the help, all the assistance, all the cooperation.
He had divine favor.
And he couldn't pull it off.
Couldn't.
And yet, here's a guy now that everybody universally hates him. Works against him. Can't stand him. And yet, here he is, one by one, knocking down all the dominoes. And is he the Antichrist to the entire globalist system? Boy,
think about it, folks.
Interesting.
Now, and I'll take you further. You go into the book of Matthew. This is what whoever wrote those words, that Christ was talking about. This is the man who's going to be reviled. Didn't he say that?
Right.
Yes.
And his visage is more marred than any other man. Have you ever seen such horrible, ugly presentations of a president ever? The way they
it's
just filthy.
And you know, you got to step back and you just got to look at this objectively. And what if they're playing? What if all the negative energy that's being invoked? What if this is feeding something, folks, that we haven't even any idea about yet?
But I'm just a wild-eyed optimist, Wayne.
I don't know. Boy, we got in some ground here today.
Yep. That's probably going to affect, probably take care of my surge of subscribers.
No, listen.
I just mentioned Barron Trump's Great Adventure or something, a 100-year-old book. What's it called?
Yeah,
Have
I
you
got
heard
a
about
copy of
that?
that.
The
Yeah, I've read it.
100-year-old book, Barron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey.
And folks, you read that one.
Have you read it,
Woo-hoo.
Wayne?
Oh yeah, yeah. This. Something's going on, buddy. That's all I got to tell you. Something's going on. You can't, you cannot, in any cognitive, rational mind, not say that something is afoot here.
Is Trump a time traveler?
I don't know. All I know is this, is that he is the man who is reviled by everywhere and everywhere he goes, but yet he has a remnant of following, and he has something that whatever attacks him goes back on the attacker.
He does.
It
Sounds like
does.
he has favor almost.
Yeah, he has favor of an immense level.
And I mean, he does seem to have some precognition, that's for sure.
And and I go by the belief
that I worked and I ran a state in a presidential campaign before, so I know a little bit about it. We didn't win, but
doesn't matter.
That campaign that he ran in 2016 was the best presidential campaign that has ever been run in any country in the history of politics. And
The
Trump
analysts
was the one pushing the buttons, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that is said, and we can talk about it now. He figured this thing out about the Electoral College
He did.
before he even made his candidacy aware of.
Yeah. Don't think that Trump didn't sit there and think,
Hmm.
I can win this thing.
Now, the question we all must ask ourselves, why?
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 He's either really, really good or really, really bad.
One of the two, because if you got everything, why would you do this?
Yeah.
There has to be something bigger at play.
Yep.
Well, Jeff, this has been...
Stay tuned.
Oh, man. So what you got coming up on your channel? By the way, folks, make sure to subscribe to Jeff if you haven't. I'm sure if you haven't, I'm kind of wondering why, but...
Well, I got the news from YouTube that they gave me the whole, okay, we'll send them a response, and if they don't respond in 14 days, we'll remove your inability to go live. So it's going to be in like 12 more days at least, or 12 more days at the worst. I'll be able to go back into live production. So we're kind of putting a lot of stuff off right now, but I'm putting up a lot of great information.
You are.
It's not going to be live, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, we got you live here. Are you going to be live on any other channels?
Not that I know of yet. Okay. What does your shirt say, by the way?
It says,
common sense is so rare these days. It should be classified as a superpower. Isn't that the truth?
So, I come on, I just don't have my cape on, but I took it off before I sat down.
Excellent. Excellent.
Jeff, I'll tell you, I'll send you the cleansing ceremony for favor.
Somebody just told me that is so totally wrong. I don't know what I said. What did I say that's so totally wrong?
I don't know.
Anyway.
I don't know.
I usually say a lot of things that are totally wrong, so it's hard to keep track.
Listen, I tell people this all the time. I am made perfect through my imperfections.
Isn't that the truth?
And so, don't hate your imperfections, folks. Embrace them and say, all right, you stink, and you just want to get them cleaned, and then bring them back.
Yeah, absolutely. And be positive, be optimistic. And, I like what the Gallup organization wrote a book a few years back that was called Soar with Your Strengths. And so many times we spend so much time trying to fix the things that are wrong with us. And if we just soared with our strengths, maybe that would be a better way to go. I don't know.
I think it is, Jeff. I'm just going to say this. One of the things I have learned, and I suffered from this, it held me back in so many things.
Thank you, Caroline. She was talking about my channel being shut down.
Oh, I'm going to do a program this week in showing people how they booby trap themselves.
Oh, we do.
Tony
Robbins says your words are either building blocks or wrecking balls to the life you want to live.
And I think most people, it's like they get up in the morning, bam, it's like, all right, but
We're stupid. Everything we say is against us. I mean,
yeah,
why do
we
we say
should do.
the stupid things that we say? I mean, that's, I've almost worked it out of my vocabulary, but even somebody that should know better always says, I'm always a day late and a dollar short. Why would you say that?
Why would you do
Don't
that?
say that. Don't do that to yourself. Stop it. Now somebody just got mad at me, but that's okay. I don't mind calling people out in public every now and then.
Listen, we
At least I
all
didn't
learn.
mention his name.
We just call him Mr. Anonymous.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Jeff, you're a good man. I appreciate you. I thank you. Folks, get over there and support him. And we just kind of look at this thing where, if you, the thing I just want to close with, Jeff, is the Hermetic teachings. You know what it's also done for me? It's unified love for me.
Oh, absolutely.
It has, Jeff. It doesn't matter what you believe. I can look at you now and say, that's cool. You're a spirit. Now, I think there's a lot of human bodies walking around that don't have souls in them these days, but that's
up to
thing.
70% of the people, I think, Wayne. And you know what? I just thought about this, just came out on my channel the other day. I was thinking about this. In this, I think it was mentioned just as an aside in this book. And I thought, whoa, that's so powerful. We talk about walk-ins, 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 walk-ins. But guess what? I think there can also be walk-outs. Sometime, like it says in, I think it was Hosea, my spirit will not always strive with man.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially when it's the last days, quote unquote, and especially when we got to get busy, especially when things got to get done. Sometimes the part of spirit, I think, that's in a person, if that person over and over and over and over and over again won't get with it, sometimes the spirit might say, well, bye, I'm out of here.
Gone.
There's walkouts, just like there's walk-ins. Sometimes the spirit, the spark of life will walk out if you just aren't going to get with the program.
So if that which, in the book of Ecclesiastes, as it says, that, there isn't anything new under the sun.
That's right.
If we've had cultures in the past, and I know we're going way over, I don't care, that we're able to make golems, human bodies.
Yep.
And they've perfected it over the years. And when I think about this, I think about, for instance, the story that happened in New York City in Times Square. A guy was in a wheelchair, an elderly citizen was hit, he's hurt, and you know what? He was robbed.
Yeah.
He was robbed.
Yeah.
And we're hearing stories of these kind of atrocities going more and more. And I'm thinking to myself, what if there's just a lot of people walking around that really don't have a soul?
Yep, absolutely, Wayne.
I don't know, Jeff.
This was some good stuff.
It was wonderful. Thank you, my friend. You are a good soul, a great spirit to be known. I'm telling you, I feel much more enriched by our paths crossing. And, we're going on, I counted them up last night. We've done I think this is either our 59th or 60th show that we've done over the year now.
Wow, spread the word, Wayne. We've come a long way. You and I have been through a lot of interesting turns in the road.
Iron sharpens iron, always does.
And definitely so. Definitely.
I'm not gonna improve myself if it's just a fluffy brush. It's like,
that's true.
It's true. I was thinking about you, by the way, yesterday. That
I hope you weren't cussing while you were doing
No. I always bless you when I think of you. I always think favor is what I think. But I was thinking about, what you've gone through, and I thought to myself, this is what a sojourner does. A sojourner will take risk, and sometimes the risk rewards and sometimes it doesn't. But nevertheless, I know that Jeffrey Doherty is stronger today than before.
Thank you, Wayne. That means a lot coming from you. And even when it doesn't work, it still works. There's a working being done and an improvement being made. And everything I've been through since I met you, some of it, it's the old classic story. What some people meant for evil, the divine means for good. And whatever I go through it 110%. pedal to the metal, wall to wall, treetop tall. And sometimes you get a few bumps and sometimes you crash. But, I've said this before, I'm so optimistic. I'm totally optimistic. And I live my life that way. And that's the reason why I can fall into a vat of crap and come out smelling like a rose somehow every single time. And it's not because I'm smart or because I'm spiritual. It's because I'm optimistic and I go 100%, and I'm always operating in love and compassion and trying to be right, do right.
Well, that's, folks, and I know we're surrounded in this community we are in, Jeff, that I think we're a community of what the native people of America called the true human beings.
It's just Sterling over in Osaka. He's so funny. I told him this not 20 years ago, but a long time ago. He said, "How do you pronounce your name?" And I said, "It's Darty, like in party, Darty, like Party." And he just quotes it, Darty, like in party. That's because that's how he's living my life, like party.
So that's
Sometimes
what,
it's not a great party, but it's never boring, Wayne.
well, listen, we're all here to, if it's not intellectually stimulating, then why are you doing it?
Exactly. I tell you what, everything I've done, I've had fun doing, not the whole time, but
Well,
everything happens for a reason and it all works together. I did this show a little bit while ago. What this really means, everything does work together for good for those that are the called according to his purpose and do diligently seek him. That's the key. You just
yeah,
have to diligently seek the divine. It doesn't mean you don't have to get it right every time. You might screw it up every time, but as long as you're diligently seeking, everything will work together for good for you, period.
it will.
I live
And
in proof.
I'm just, I trust that people are looking at the same thing. And how you can find the divine is not through a religion. It's not through an ideology. It's not through a dogma. It's
Yeah.
through you.
Yeah.
And you teach that.
So stay tuned, folks. It's going to be fun.
Strap it in, bug. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, Wayne.
Jeff, you're a good man. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Make sure to support Jeff here. And we'll see y'all again next week on the channel that, what, Jeff? Not your normal Sunday?
If for some reason the person sent back said, "Oh yeah, we'll drop it," I could be on live next week, but I would not.
Folks, let's just send that individual collectively favor.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm just saying. We know, and go over there, literally get over on Jeff's channel and just think to those that have oppressed him, just think favor for them. We mean them no harm. What we mean for them is to prosper. So folks, we love them.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate it so much.
All right, my friend. We'll see you soon. All right. Bye-bye, folks.